The waitress secretly shared her lunch with a homeless man, but the next day, when this homeless man entered the restaurant, everyone froze. No one expected such an outcome. Hi there, and welcome to Moonlit Stories channel. Thanks for tuning in. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's story. I think you're really going to love it. At 6 in the morning, when the alarm clock rang next to Mary's bed, she sighed, rubbed her tired eyes, and reached out to turn it off. Her days were tough and long, but there was no turning back. Life hadn't been kind to Mary. At 24 years old, she had already become the sole guardian for her 12-year-old brother Sam. After making breakfast for Sam and packing him sandwiches for school, Mary gently woke him up. "Time to get up, buddy. We have a long day ahead," she whispered with a smile. Sam groaned in protest, but smiled back, pulling the blanket over his head. Mary chuckled quietly. Such moments were rare in her challenging life. When Sam was ready for school, Mary walked him there and waved goodbye. Now it was her turn to get ready for work. Mary worked at a once popular eatery called the Corner Eatery. Upon entering the eatery, Mary immediately recognized the familiar scent of freshly brewed coffee and breakfast foods. The eatery had once been cozy and bright, but now the wallpaper had faded, and the lights had grown dim, giving the place a worn-out look. Regular customers still visited, but their numbers dwindled by the day. Mary greeted her colleagues with a tired smile. She tried to stay upbeat despite the heavy workload, balancing 2 jobs, taking care of her brother, and constantly struggling to pay the bills. She never showed her exhaustion. Mary's life philosophy was simple. Be kind, no matter what, and her kindness extended to everyone who walked into the eatery, regardless of their ability to pay for their meal. The day was gray, casting a sense of melancholy over everyone in the city. But for Mary, who was stepping out of the eatery, it became special when her gaze accidentally fell on a man sitting on the sidewalk. He was wearing tattered clothes and seemed to be minding his own business. He wasn't holding a sign or a cup for spare change. He was just sitting there, almost blending in with the hustle and bustle of the street like a shadow no one noticed. A boy with candy in hand appeared next to him, perhaps intending to offer something, but before he could reach out, his mother hurriedly pulled him away, grimacing in disgust. "Don't go near him," she muttered. "Who knows what diseases those people have?" Mary's heart ached when she witnessed this unpleasant scene. She couldn't just walk past like everyone else. There was something about this man that touched her deeply. Without a second thought, she approached him, sat down beside him on the sidewalk, and asked, "You must be hungry?" She spoke softly to him. The man's name was Nathan, and he looked at her, his tired eyes lingering on her face for a moment before he nodded. Mary opened her lunch bag, revealing a sandwich and an apple. Nothing fancy, but enough to have a meal and continue her workday. Without hesitation, she broke the sandwich in half and handed it to him. Nathan took the sandwich with a quiet, grateful smile, his hands trembling slightly as he took the first bite. They sat in silence, the noisy world around them seemingly disappearing as they shared this modest meal. Mary was lost in her thoughts, feeling quiet satisfaction from helping someone in need. The next day, Nathan was there again, sitting in the same spot. This time, Mary greeted him with a broader smile. "Hungry again?" she joked, and he nodded. She shared her lunch with him again, and over the meal, they started talking. Gradually, as they conversed, the barriers between them began to dissolve. Mary pulled a small textbook from her bag and started flipping through the pages. Nathan watched her intently. "Studying?" he asked after a while, his voice hoarse but friendly. Mary nodded, not looking up from the book, trying to keep up with her studies between work and caring for her brother. "Not much time, so I study whenever I can." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "You sure have a lot on your plate." Mary gave a faint smile. "Yes, but I have no choice." For a moment she hesitated, and then, perhaps because there was something about Nathan that made her feel safe, She began to share what she had long kept to herself. You know, I didn't always live like this, she said quietly, looking at the pages of her book but not reading. It used to be very different. Nathan listened attentively, silently, never interrupting, just allowing Mary to speak. My parents, they were amazing people, Mary continued, and her voice became a bit distant as memories surfaced. We had a cozy home, always full of fun and warmth. Mom was a teacher, and Dad ran his small construction business. We weren't wealthy, but we were happy. Every Sunday morning, the whole family would gather for breakfast, pancakes, eggs, whatever we wanted. Dad always told the simplest jokes, and Sam, my younger brother, always tried to mimic him. A tear welled up in Mary's eye, but she quickly blinked it away, not letting it fall. But that was before the accident. Nathan said nothing, just waited, sensing that perhaps she was sharing something so personal for the first time. One of those rainy nights, Mary said, her voice tense. My parents were coming back from a party, but they never made it home. A truck skidded on the wet road and it was all over. One moment I was waiting for them, sure they'd walk through the door any minute, and the next I got the call, and everything fell apart. Nathan gritted his teeth, feeling the weight of her pain. I was 18 then, she continued. I had to grow up fast. Sam was only 10. I had to be strong for him, you know? He was just a kid, and I couldn't let him see how scared I was. I couldn't let myself break down, couldn't cry. I had to make sure he felt safe, even if I barely managed myself. She paused for a moment, taking a deep breath. I started working at the eatery, dropped out of school to take care of Sam. We manage as best as we can, but there are days and moments when everything feels unbearable. Some nights, after Sam falls asleep, I allow myself to cry, but I never let him see it. He thinks I'm strong, that I've got everything under control, but I don't. I'm just holding on. Mary looked at Nathan, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and determination. But I keep going because I have to. Not just for Sam, but for myself. My parents always taught me not to give up. For the first time, Nathan spoke, his voice quiet but firm. You've been through a lot, but you haven't broken. That's something to be proud of. Mary gave a small smile. I don't know if I'm proud of it, but at least I'm here. They sat a while longer, quietly finishing their meal. Mary absent-mindedly flipped through the pages of her textbook, though her thoughts were far away. Nathan watched her closely, admiring her resilience and strength, marveling at her ability to keep moving forward despite everything. When Mary stood up to go back to work, she smiled at him again. See you tomorrow. Nathan nodded, but his face remained thoughtful as he watched her walk back into the eatery. The next day, Nathan returned, but this time he entered through the front door. He was still in the same worn clothes with the same tired look, but instead of quietly sitting outside, he came in as a regular customer. As soon as he walked in, all eyes turned to him. The regular customers, seated in their usual spots, looked at him judgmentally. Some whispered, while others openly stared in disapproval. Mary noticed him immediately and smiled. Nathan! She called out, her voice sounding joyful as she approached to greet him. Come in, have a seat. I'll be right with you. Nathan returned her smile, though his eyes quickly scanned the room, noting the looks people gave him. It seemed he was not surprised by this. He was used to it. Nathan sat at a table by the window, but soon the manager, Steve, entered the eatery. Steve saw Nathan and, loud enough for everyone to hear, asked, What in the world is going on here? Mary blinked in surprise. Steve, he's a customer. A customer? Steve replied disdainfully, as if the very word irritated him. "Does he even have money to pay?" he asked Nathan. "Or did you just come here to waste our time?" Nathan remained calm and silently looked at Steve, his expression completely unperturbed. "I'll pay, just like everyone else." But Steve wasn't convinced. He looked at the other customers, pointing at Nathan as if he were some kind of spectacle. "Look at him," his voice grew louder, "sitting here like he belongs. People like him only scare away real customers." Mary's heart raced as she watched the scene unfold. Her cheeks flushed, but more than anything, she felt a surge of anger. How could Steve humiliate someone like this in front of everyone? "Steve, stop," she said quietly but firmly, trying to keep her voice steady. "This is wrong." Steve ignored Mary, as if her words didn't matter, and continued. "This isn't a charity, Mary. We're running a business here. Do you think anyone wants to sit next to someone like that? Customers want comfort and order, not to share the room with a bum who smells like the street." Nathan sat silently across from Steve, his gaze fixed on him. He didn't argue, didn't look away, just waited for Steve to finish. Mary's hands trembled slightly as she placed the menu in front of Nathan. "What would you like to order?" she asked quietly, trying to keep her voice calm, though the tension in the air was palpable. Nathan glanced at the menu, then looked back at her. "Bring me whatever you think is best." Mary gave him a faint smile, apologizing with her eyes, understanding that he was just trying to defuse the situation. "Then I'll make you something delicious," she replied. Steve stared at her, his nostrils flaring with irritation. "Are you serious? You're wasting time on him. We have plenty of regular customers, and you're here with someone who might not even be able to pay for water." At that moment, Mary felt a surge of anger inside her. She had never seen Steve so mean and cynical. Her heart pounded as she resolutely stood between him and Nathan, trying to keep her voice steady. "Steve, he's a customer like everyone else," Mary said firmly. "He has the right to be here and to be treated with respect. We can't judge people here," Mary added, not backing down. Steve scoffed sarcastically. "Respect for him?" He made a theatrical gesture towards Nathan. "Look at him, Mary. Do you think he came here for the food? He has nowhere else to go. He won't attract customers. He'll scare them away." Some nearby customers shifted uncomfortably, while others nodded in agreement with Steve. But Mary wasn't about to back down. "He's a person," she replied louder, "and he deserves respect." Finally Nathan spoke. His voice was calm and steady, despite the hostility around him. "I don't want to cause any trouble. If my presence is a problem, I'll leave." Steve smirked, satisfied. "Now that's what I call a solution. Go on, leave." Mary felt something break inside her as she saw Nathan slowly stand up. But before he could leave, she touched his shoulder. "Wait," she whispered, her eyes pleading with him to stay. Then she turned to Steve, her voice trembling with anger. "You're being unfair. You can't treat people like this." But Steve just snorted irritably. He grabbed a rag from the counter and tossed it to another waitress. "Make sure his spot is wiped down when he leaves," he said disdainfully. "We don't need any dirt left behind." Nathan gave Mary a faint smile, as if to say, "It's okay." Mary watched Nathan walk out the door and disappear into the street crowd, her throat tight with emotion. She wanted to run after him and apologize for the injustice, but she knew there was nothing she could do to make up for Steve's rudeness. When Nathan left, Steve turned to Mary with a scowl. "And don't you ever think of crossing me in front of customers again," he threatened. "You're lucky I'm even keeping you here after this." Mary clenched her fists, trying to hold back the words that could cost her the job. She needed this job too much for Sam, for their future. But it hurt her to stay silent in the face of such injustice. The next morning, Mary arrived at work with a heavy heart. The events of the previous day lingered in her mind, and the guilt of not doing more to defend Nathan haunted her. There was a palpable tension in the eatery, and soon she understood why. At the scheduled time, all employees were called to an urgent meeting. Everyone sat in the hall, whispering quietly and waiting to see what would happen. Mary took a seat at the back, glancing around nervously. Steve stood at the front, looking smug, as if he knew something the others didn't. Suddenly, the door opened and Nathan walked in. Gone were the old clothes and tired look. Now he was dressed in a sharp, well-tailored suit, with well-groomed hair and a confident demeanor. He walked in with purpose, his presence immediately filling the room. Everyone froze, stunned by what was happening. Mary's heart raced as she tried to comprehend what she was seeing. Could this really be the same man she had just shared a meal with? Nathan walked up to Steve and stopped beside him, who now looked visibly uncomfortable. "Good morning, everyone," Nathan began, his voice confident and strong. "I imagine many of you are wondering who I am and why I'm here." He paused, looking around the room. His eyes rested on Mary for a moment before he continued. "My name is Nathan Sinclair." The room buzzed with surprised whispers. Mary held her breath, realizing that Nathan was the owner of the hospitality group that included their eatery. The smug look on Steve's face vanished as he grasped the gravity of the situation. "For the past few weeks, I have been observing this eatery and how people work here," Nathan said, his voice becoming firmer but still controlled. "I wanted to understand how the process works, how customers are treated, and what changes can be made to restore this place to its former glory." His gaze shifted to Steve, who now felt distinctly uncomfortable. "Unfortunately," Nathan continued, his voice now harsher, "I have witnessed behavior that is not only unprofessional but utterly disgraceful. Yesterday, I saw a manager humiliate a customer simply because he didn't look like someone who belonged here." Steve turned pale and tried to protest, but Nathan cut him off. "You judged me solely on my appearance," Nathan said coldly. "You decided I was unworthy of respect because I didn't fit your idea of a paying customer. You didn't care who I really was. You only cared about the image." Steve stammered, trying to find the right words. Well, I didn't know. I thought—" "You thought I was beneath you," Nathan snapped. "That's the problem." Nathan turned to the rest of the staff, his expression softening slightly. "This establishment will no longer tolerate discrimination. There will no longer be any place for biased treatment based on appearance, financial status, or any other differences. Everyone who steps through the door of this eatery deserves respect and kindness, just like Mary showed me when she served me." Nathan smiled warmly at Mary, who was stunned, trying to process what was happening. "Mary," Nathan said, addressing her with full attention, "you showed me kindness when no one else would. You treated me like any other person, without judgment or assessment. That's the kind of attitude this restaurant should be guided by," Nathan said. He addressed the rest of the staff with a more serious tone. "The success of any business is not only built on the products it sells, but also on how it treats people. Mary understands this, but Steve does not." Nathan stepped forward and looked at Steve. "Steve, you will no longer manage this eatery. If you want to stay, you will take a subordinate position and learn from Mary how to treat people with respect. If that doesn't suit you, you can leave." Steve reddened with anger and embarrassment, but knew arguing was pointless. He muttered something under his breath and stormed out of the hall, leaving the rest of the staff in stunned silence. Nathan turned to Mary, his expression softening. "Mary, for your kindness and dedication to your work, I would like to offer you the position of manager. You deserve it." Mary's eyes widened in surprise. "Me? But I have no experience." "You have more than enough of the qualities needed for this role," Nathan said with a smile. "You have kindness and honesty, which are so important for this place." Tears welled up in Mary's eyes as a wave of emotions washed over her. She had worked for years without expecting recognition or reward, and now she was presented with such an unexpected opportunity. Additionally, Nathan added, "As a token of appreciation for everything you've done, I want to give you a bonus to support you and your brother. You deserve some peace after all your hard work." Mary blinked, holding back tears, overwhelmed by the kindness and generosity of this man she had recently considered just another passerby. With the promotion and financial support from Nathan, Mary's life began to change in ways she couldn't have imagined. The constant financial pressure gradually lifted, and for the first time in years, she could relax a little. Things at home also improved. Sam noticed that the atmosphere became lighter and calmer, which made him happy. Mary decided to introduce a new initiative at the eatery, allowing customers to anonymously pay for meals for those in need. This idea not only attracted more visitors, but also helped create an atmosphere of support and community in the eatery. People from all walks of life started visiting, knowing they would be welcomed, regardless of their circumstances. For the first time since their family had perished, Mary and Sam began to feel whole again. Sam had always admired his sister's strength, but now he saw something new in her, a glimmer of joy, hope, and confidence that had long been missing. Mary no longer shouldered the entire burden of responsibility alone. She had a stable job and no longer needed multiple side jobs. Seeking personal growth, Mary enrolled in online business management courses. Under her leadership, the Corner Eatery began to transform. Special changes occurred in customer service. She introduced new approaches, such as buy a meal for another. This allowed patrons to pay for meals for those in need. The kitchen staff, who had long lost interest, came alive and started experimenting with the menu. Mary supported the innovation, giving chefs the freedom to try new recipes and cater to a wide range of customer preferences. Over time, word spread, and soon the Corner Eatery became popular not only for its delicious food, but also for its atmosphere of warmth, openness, and honesty. Even regular customers who used to complain about slow service and declining quality noticed the positive changes. They now praised the cozy atmosphere, tasty dishes, and the feeling that the eatery had become a place where everyone felt part of something bigger. Nathan, remaining an active participant in the eatery's success, allowed Mary to shine. Sometimes he would drop by to offer advice or support, but it was clear that Mary had become the heart and soul of this establishment. Under her leadership, the eatery transformed not just as a business, but also as a hub for community and connection. Gradually, Mary adapted to her role as manager and began to think about what her future might hold beyond the eatery. Nathan taught her the importance of growth, not just professionally, but also personally. His mentorship helped her see that many opportunities lay ahead. With business courses and newfound knowledge, Mary began to dream of one day opening her own establishment, where she could combine her love for cooking with her desire to create spaces where people felt needed and valued. But she didn't rush, continuing to invest herself with warmth and gratitude in the Corner Eatery, enjoying the opportunities for growth and development. Despite all the changes in her life, Mary never forgot the lessons life had taught her. She remained humble, attentive, and always ready to lend a helping hand, whether it was to a customer in need, a colleague going through tough times, or her brother, who remained her main source of inspiration. One day, when the lunch rush had calmed and soft sunlight filled the eatery, Nathan stopped by, as he sometimes did. This time he wasn't there on business, but just to grab a bite and chat. Mary, who now saw Nathan not just as a boss, but as a father figure, sat with him at the window table he loved. Nathan watched as she carefully ensured everything in the eatery ran smoothly, greeted customers, checked orders, and oversaw the staff. When she finally had a moment to sit, he smiled warmly. "You've done a fantastic job here," Nathan said, his voice full of pride. Mary blushed slightly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I couldn't have done it without you." Nathan shook his head. "No, Mary, it was always in you. I just helped you bring it out." They sat in silence for a moment, enjoying the moment, before Nathan leaned forward with a serious expression. "Do you remember how we met? You shared your lunch with me that day." Mary nodded, remembering that day clearly. That simple act of kindness, Nathan said, his voice softening, changed everything. Not just for me, but for you too. You didn't know who I was, but you treated me with respect and understanding. You saw a person, not a problem. That's what makes you special, Mary. That's why you've been successful. Tears welled up in Mary's eyes as she listened to his words. You've created something more than just an eatery here, Nathan continued, gesturing to the cozy room around them. You've created a community, and that's what people will remember. Mary smiled, feeling warmth and joy in her heart. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long while, she felt ready to face it with confidence, kindness, and unwavering belief that even small acts of care could change the world. With the thriving eatery and new opportunities for personal development, Mary gained a newfound sense of confidence. She was no longer just an exhausted young woman struggling to make ends meet, but a true leader, an example for her brother, and a beacon of hope for everyone who came to the Corner Eatery. Sam also flourished thanks to the stability his sister provided. He could now focus on what truly interested him without worrying about being a burden. His passion for drawing brought him joy, and he dreamed of becoming an illustrator one day. Mary was proud of her brother and supported him every step of the way. Together they entered a new chapter of their lives, leaving behind all the hardships. For Mary, the future was bright and full of possibilities she had never dreamed of before. She knew that no matter what happened, she would always remember life's lessons, show kindness, respect others, and believe that even the simplest acts of compassion could change lives in ways she could never have imagined. Thank you for listening to the story. Don't forget to share your thoughts on the story. Subscribe to Moonlit Stories channel and share this video with your friends and loved ones. It motivates us to keep working on new stories every day. See you soon.